Hello, my name is Cynthia Campbell, and I'm pleased to have been the author of the foundation essay for this unit of practice on forgive. Up until about a year and a half ago, I served as pastor of the Highland Presbyterian Church in Louisville, Kentucky. I've also spent a good deal of time in my past as a theological educator on the faculty at Austin Presbyterian Theological Seminary, and then as a professor and president at McCormick Theological Seminary in Chicago. All along the way, it's been my privilege to work with adults primarily in congregations across the country, and I'm so pleased to be part of this curriculum that helps us understand how our faith isn't just ideas, but is about the things that we embody and live in our everyday lives. The first aspect of the practice of forgiveness is naming what is wrong. Naming sin for what it is. Forgive us our debts implies that we are able to recognize the ways in which we have fallen short of what God intends and hopes and expects from us and for us. So likewise, when we are confronted with a time when we might forgive someone else, this does not mean denying what has been done. In fact, it is just the opposite. It is crucially important as I engage the practice of forgiving you to be able to name for myself that I have been wronged. I have been on the receiving end of something that is unjust or unfair or hurtful. And because only then, having named what is wrong, are we ready to turn the page to something else. But at the outset, we need to talk about what forgiveness is and what it's not. The Greek word that we translate forgive has the meaning of to let go of or to turn loose. It is undoing a burden. It is setting something down. It is precisely not forgetting. Sometimes we hear the phrase forgive and forget. That's not it. In the first place, the forgetting is not possible. And in the second place, it risks denying the reality of the brokenness itself. Because you see, wrongs, whether they are individual or social or systemic, whether they are done by one person or intentionally by a government or a business or an organization, wrongs have consequences. But those who have been wronged can forgive in the sense of letting go of the anger, the desire for revenge, the need to get even. The story that we will look at primarily in this section is that of the parable that is often called the prodigal son, or I think really better called the parable of the loving father. I'm going to weave that parable in and out of a couple of these sessions, but the first step in that story is the one that is important here. The young man who has left his father, the rest of his family, with his inheritance, an act that is tantamount to having said, well, Dad, you're already dead because now I get my legacy. The young man finds himself in dire straits and he comes to himself. He comes to recognize what he has done, and he decides that he is going to go home and ask for forgiveness, to confess what he has done. Now notice that he intuits, by even doing this, he knows somewhere deep inside who his father really is. He understands that his father is one who will, in some form or fashion, take him home, set aside what he has done, and help him start over. We, first of all, confess our sins and are on the receiving end of God's forgiveness. The prodigal son makes that turn to go home because of who he understands both himself to be, acknowledging his sin, but also who his father really is.